Welcome to today's Explainer. Look, if you have ever felt your blood pressure absolutely skyrocket before 7:30 in the morning just trying to get a kid out the door, trust me, you are certainly not alone. Today, we're diving into the incredibly stressful reality of morning school routines, but more importantly, we're going to explore how reframing these difficult mornings can entirely transform student success and drastically reduce burnout for everyone involved.
Let's kick things off with a harsh reality that parents and educators know in their bones. For so many families, the absolute hardest 20 minutes of the entire day happen before 8 in the morning. Seriously, picture it. Backpacks exploding everywhere, voices getting louder, that clock just loudly ticking away. It sets this deeply frantic, exhausting tone before the school bell even has a chance to ring.
All right, so let's get into section 1, the hardest 20 minutes, or the anatomy of a morning meltdown.
To really figure out how to fix this, we first have to empathize with what those mornings actually look like. This sequence perfectly maps out the rapid, almost inevitable escalation of a bad morning. It always starts small, right? Like shoes that have mysteriously vanished into thin air. That sudden panic kicks off a real physiological response, maybe a sudden stomachache that somehow only happens on school days. And then, boom, the tension snaps. A kid who is perfectly fine at bedtime is now completely dysregulated on the floor by breakfast.
The really important takeaway here is this devastating dual impact. It's kind of like a two-front war. On one side of the equation, you've got the parent arriving at work totally depleted, basically running on fumes before their shift even begins. And on the flip side, the student arrives at school completely dysregulated. Their nervous system is already in overdrive, perfectly setting them up to catch the day's first behavior referral literally the second they walk through the front doors.
Moving on to Section 2, what resistance really means, looking beneath the surface.
Now this is where it gets super fascinating. Morning resistance, it is almost never just about the morning itself. Instead of looking at this as a strict discipline issue where families should just shoulder all the blame, we need to see these behaviors for what they actually are, distress signals. They point to specific clinical root causes. We're talking anticipatory anxiety, sleep debt, a morning transition that is just way too abrupt for a child's brain, or sheer sensory overload from all the noise and rushing. Crucially, these are early, highly interruptible signs of school avoidance.
Let's zoom in on anticipatory anxiety for a second. This is a very real, highly specific fear that a child carries about an obstacle waiting for them at school. They aren't just being stubborn to drive everyone crazy. Their brain is actively sounding a threat alarm. It could be triggered by the thought of a chaotic, loud cafeteria, a looming math test they feel unprepared for, or even just dreading an interaction with a specific kid on the bus.
And that brings us to sleep debt. Oh man, this is a massively compounding physiological issue. When a child racks up a deficit of sleep over a few days or weeks, it literally hinders their brain's executive functioning. This deficit makes it virtually impossible for a child to hit the brakes on big emotions when they feel rushed or pressured. They simply don't have the biological gas in the tank to stay calm.
Which leads us right into Section 3, the cost of waiting and the danger of treating signals as symptoms.
Right now, there is a massive systemic disconnect in how we handle these mornings. Schools usually treat these drop-off meltdowns as simple attendance or discipline problems, right? Handing out unexcused tardies or demanding punitive parent conferences. But actually, scratch that. We absolutely have to reframe this. We have to start seeing these incredibly difficult moments for what they really are. Early clinical signals that require a totally different, much more supportive pathway to solve the root problem.
The clinical case for early intervention is just straightforward. Think about it. Contrast the ease of a quick, supportive intervention in August with the exhausting reality of waiting until November. If you wait, you aren't just dealing with a few grumpy mornings anymore. Suddenly, you're faced with trying to fix deeply ingrained school avoidance habits, widening academic gaps from all those absences, and families who are completely burned out from managing this struggle entirely alone for a full quarter.
Let's pivot to Section 4, a new drop-off playbook, and creating a better referral pathway.
So how do we actually fix this on a practical level? Well, schools need to implement a protocol where repeated difficult drop-offs instantly trigger a clinical screening with a clear named referral pathway. This entirely bypasses the usual punitive attendance route. Because think about it, when you stop treating a genuine cry for help as an attendance violation, it completely changes the dynamic. It immediately shifts the relationship between the school, the student, and the parent from one of punishment to a proactive partnership.
All right, Section 5, the MentalSpace solution, providing K-12 mental health support in Georgia.
MentalSpace School offers the exact comprehensive framework districts need to tackle these early screening triggers head-on. They act as an immediate clinical partner, and the support is just incredibly robust. We're talking same-day access to culturally competent teletherapy with dedicated teams for each school. Having licensed, diverse therapists available builds essential trust with the student body, making crisis intervention, staff wellness programs, and family counseling vastly more effective, all while remaining fully HIPAA and FERPA compliant.
Plus, they completely knock down the massive logistical barriers to getting this help. They make this critical care highly accessible by accepting major insurance and, this is a big one, offering $0 out-of-pocket coverage for Medicaid. Removing that financial roadblock is an absolute game changer for early intervention. And for our Georgia schools tuning in, partnering with MentalSpace directly supports the upcoming HB 268 compliance deadline set for July 2026.
Now check out these numbers. When we stop handing out tardy slips and actually start treating the root clinical causes through a partner like MentalSpace, the results are undeniable. By shifting our approach, student attendance improves by an incredible 89%. It turns out that when kids aren't drowning in unaddressed anxiety or exhaustion, they actually want to show up and participate in their education.
And it gets even better. Providing early intervention through these dedicated therapist teams leads to a massive 92% reduction in student anxiety. Just think about what a 92% drop in anxiety looks like for a school building. It means calmer classrooms, vastly more engaged learners, significantly fewer behavior referrals, and an overall safer, more supportive vibe for both the students and the teaching staff.
And that positive ripple effect goes straight home too. With 85% of families reporting high satisfaction, it really proves a vital point. When schools choose to support families clinically rather than disciplining them for something outside their control, the entire community thrives. It totally repairs the friction those morning meltdowns cause and transforms a community's relationship with the school system.
If you want to explore bringing these dedicated, highly effective clinical resources to your own district today, you can reach out directly to MentalSpace School. Making this shift empowers student support teams to do what they do best, help students succeed both emotionally and academically from the very minute they step onto campus. As we wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with one absolutely vital question to chew on during tomorrow morning's drop-off. Whether you are a parent or an educator, ask yourself, is your school still just punishing the symptom, or are you ready to finally treat the signal? Understanding that difference can literally change a student's entire academic trajectory. Thank you so much for joining me today.